He owned all the ferries. So he was just this astute businessman, probably a lot of that from the Scottish side of the family, who knows? A lot of the Native Americans were pretty astute business people too, so who knows? But he certainly was. And he was a wealthy person for his time. He had 3 wives, 2 of which lived on his plantation. The 3rd wife said, "I'm not living there. I want my own house." And so he built her a house about 50 miles away or so. So he had numerous children, of course. The oldest child was named Chili, and he's famous. You'll see him in books. He was the oldest son. Now, the youngest son was Daniel Newman. Now, the story, of course, has to go through the treaties. McIntosh was involved in several treaties that were signed between the Creeks and the U.S. government. Treaty of 1821, the most infamous one is 1825. And so in 1825, the Lower Creek chiefs primarily signed a treaty with the U.S. government called the Treaty of Indian Springs. And the Upper Creeks were not there to sign the treaty, and they pronounced the death sentence upon Chief William. So there's a long story there. If you want to talk about that, we can talk about it later. But in April 29th, 1825, that evening, the Red Stick natives of about 200 or so tribesmen made their way over to McIntosh's plantation and camped out during the night quietly. And in the early morning of April 30th, they made their way over to his house and surrounded the house. You can still go over there today. We were there. There's a facsimile of the house that's there on the same location where the original house was. And they surrounded the house, and then they started hooping and hollering and everything and waking people up. And they started a fire to burn the house down, to force the people in the house out. They were there to kill the chiefs who had signed the Treaty of 1825. So in the house was Chief William, who had signed the treaty, an older chief, I can't remember exactly his name right now, it was Tanuki or something like that. He was there, and Chief William's oldest son, Chili, was the chief, and he had signed the treaty. Chili evidently was sleeping in an outbuilding. He woke up, he was around 20-some years old. He heard the commotion, he knew immediately what was happening. And the story is that he was able to jump out of the window and run down through the forest into the Chattahoochee River and swim across the river. He got away. The natives allowed the women and the children, and there were 2 white men in the house spending the night there. The next day, the plan was they were going to go to Indian Territory, which is today Oklahoma, to investigate where they were going to move the tribe. They were ready, getting prepared to leave the next morning, on the 30th of April. But the natives had surrounded the house. They let the white men out. They had no beef with them. They weren't going to kill them. They let the women and children out. They had no beef with them. They only wanted to kill the chiefs who had signed the treaty. So that left the 2 men in the house. And William, who was around 50 years old, and the older chief. And they fought, they got their guns, they fought. Eventually the fire got too heavy and they had to come out. When they came out, 200 or so natives just mowed them down, with bullets. Supposedly one of the chiefs who had a grudge against McIntosh came out and stabbed him with a knife. He died there. He basically lay there about 2 or 3 days before the soldiers got there, and then they buried him. So his grave is there. You can go to the grave You can see the facsimile of the house and everything. Well,